Does quarantine have you stuck in a long distance relationship? Are you curious to know what it takes to make it through? Well, in this episode, Emily and I talk about how we survived 4+ years of long distance dating. Spoiler alert, we're getting married. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Questions Unanswered. My name is Josue. Across from me is Emily Hardy. You know her as the host of this show for the most part, but this time we're kind of switching things up a little bit, and I'll be asking some of the questions. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to survive long distance relationships. See, Emily and I, we've been dating now for 5 years and some change. We recently got engaged in November, and 95% of our relationship has been long distance. And we're going to kind of unpack that a little bit, what we learned about ourselves.
Just a quick disclaimer, we're obviously not experts, but we're hoping that by telling our story, we might help someone out there. Just want to say that.
Cool. All right, so let's get right into it. Emily, what would you say was the most challenging part of doing long distance relationships?
Man, like everything. No, I think one of the things that kind of pops into my mind first was communication. You know that saying that you'll make time for whatever you think is important or however it goes. I agree to a certain extent. I think for the most part that's true, but I think there's sometimes where you just don't have the time in the day to like make time to FaceTime and call for an hour or whatever. So I think that was something that was challenging, because when we did talk, I was kind of taking it more as a chore or kind of like checking something off my list of like, okay, talk to this, now I have to do this homework, now I have to read this book. So I think that kind of was a challenge in that, it became a chore instead of something that I enjoyed doing, or that we found it like helpful to our relationship.
Right. Yeah. I think we were kind of in a unique situation for sure, in the sense that long distance for us might have been easier if, we both had jobs established and things like that. But you were in the thick of your master's program and you're in a city that you've never been in before. So you're meeting people and you're having all these new experiences and things like that. So can you tell us a little bit about the challenge there of kind of having a life separate from your partner, and what that was like?
Yeah, and I mean, it was a challenge for both of us, I'd say, because you're here and you're doing, you have an established job, but you're still meeting people, you're still having your own life kind of thing. And I think the challenge with that is just trying to include your partner in like a life that you're having where they can't physically be there to meet your friends, to meet or to like do activities together, to go out for a meal. I think that's a challenging part, that you just don't have your partner there. And so there's a lot of aspects of your life that, although you might want to include them, it's like, well, you're not here, I can't. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'd say one of the first keys that we learned from ourselves in looking back now is being able to give each other room to breathe in the relationship, and kind of being okay and comfortable with recognizing that your partner, your significant other, has a life separate from your own. And at least for me, that wasn't a difficult thing, in the sense that I think that kind of came really naturally to me, either like you're saying, because I had an established job, or just because my personality type isn't the kind that needs constant communication and a lot of attention. And so I think that definitely helped us in that sense. But would you agree that you kind of have to learn to be okay with your partner having a life separate?
Well, and yours? Like, how a lot of people, some of the cliche tips are just like, oh, make sure you talk every day on the phone. Like, although I find that is helpful for some couples. Like, I know I have friends that, would talk every day, or would have kind of like FaceTime dates or whatever. It also puts like some negative pressure, I would say, for people that like us, that we just can find the time to do it every day, or have like a set schedule, because then guilt comes, and you're like, oh man, like maybe I should be, making an hour long time break to like talk or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I would say.
But in
to
your
follow.
case, that was unrealistic.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
it if anything, those type of like cliche, like, oh, talk every day on the phone, like might have brought more negative, type of things.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
guilt or just kind of feeling like you weren't doing enough. And
For sure. And for us, there were other challenges with communication. We're both millennials. You just snuck in because otherwise you'd be like
I'm still
Gen Z
millennial.
or
No,
something.
no.
But the challenge for us was when it came to communicating was, you like to communicate through text.
It's just the quickest way to do it.
Yeah, it's a fast, simple way. Hey,
Right.
shoot somebody a text, let them know what's going on. But I think what we, looking back, discovered about ourselves is that although texting each other is a fast and quick way to stay in touch, it didn't necessarily help us when we had more significant things to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that, looking back, is a tip we would give people that are in this situation, to leave kind of like either discussions or disagreement or just things that are more serious for phone, at least conversations, because you can't read tone or you can't read facial expressions through a text. So I feel like a lot of the times some things would escalate more than necessary just because we were just reading each other's and assuming kind of like what that, or reading it in whatever tone of voice we wanted to. So that multiple times would escalate things more than necessary. We're just like a quick phone call, maybe you don't have time, you don't have an hour of time to like sit down and talk about something, but maybe a quick phone call to clear things up might have been useful in avoiding some of those situations. Or even just, FaceTime, a phone call, a Snapchat's better than text, I would say. Yeah. At least you can see the face.
Yeah, totally. But definitely 100% would say, hey, at the very least, call your partner if it's going to be a serious discussion. That way you don't leave room for misinterpretation or just, any other issues that might come along, with something like that. For sure. Cool. I think something else that, that can be said about surviving long distance relationship is something that is cliche, but it ties into the fact that what we mentioned earlier about being comfortable with each other, having a life unique and distinct from your partner, and that is the element of trust,
right?
Which plays such a big and significant role, because if there isn't trust, or if there's trust that's been broken, that can definitely lead to some just really uncomfortable, tense situations. You're just
sitting there imagining things.
Yeah.
Right? Like, are they meeting some people over there?
Right.
That,
Right.
Am I just a placeholder? Like that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
but I don't think that was ever an issue. Like, at least for me, like
for
I
us,
never.
Yeah. And again, I think that may have just been part of our personality type. Right. Are there any other things that you would add on to this conversation of surviving long distance relationships?
But yeah, I feel like this is not so much a tip as it is more just something we found throughout discussing it, after the fact. But I think, at certain points, I wasn't really feeling like the relationship was going anywhere. I feel like maybe at some points you didn't feel that either. And it's funny, or maybe not funny, but it's interesting that I think we kind of quote unquote survived because we almost like gave the baton, back and forth to each other. Where one of us would be more interested in like keeping the relationship going and being more intentional about doing, certain things. And then the other one might not be feeling it at the time, but then kind of switching that role back and forth.
Yeah. And I would have to say, in the bigger picture, that kind of speaks to another reality, that in relationship, there's kind of an ebb and flow to things. Not every day is an amazing day, and not every day are you at your best. And, every relationship goes through difficult situations and challenges. And so to somehow have the expectation built in us that every day is just going to be an amazing day sets us up for failure because then we wake up one day and things didn't go our way, or we didn't feel like the other person reciprocated the way we wanted to. And that just creates sometimes unrealistic expectations that can do more damage than good. So yeah, I definitely agree. There's kind of a dance that takes place in relationships, throughout. And I think, learning to, be comfortable with that dance is something that, to a certain extent, we're still doing even now.
And I think also something that kind of helped us was having, not activities, but like visits planned, in long distance. I know we're kind of quote unquote lucky that we were close enough where we could, drive 6 hours or however many it was to see each other on the weekends or whenever. I know a lot of people don't have that, where they're like in different countries or whatever the case is. But I think that helped, kind of having something to look forward to, because I know when we were together, like physically in the same, city or whatever, it was a lot. It was like nothing had happened, and like no time had passed from that first couple months of us, starting dating and kind of that honeymoon. So definitely the distance was kind of the struggle there, like the physical distance, not being in the same place at the same time. But just having some, planned activity to look forward to, if possible. Like, I think that's definitely something that kept us going in the 4 years that we've been apart, 4+ years.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining me again here at Questions Unanswered. And for those of you watching, we hope that this has been helpful as you kind of navigate maybe your own long distance relationship, and we hope things are going better for you than they went for us. For sure, there were some challenging moments there, but we're happy to be where we are now. Looking forward to getting married, real soon here. And so we'll talk about that in a future podcast. And yeah, we just want to remind you to like, follow, comment, subscribe to this channel. It'll go a long way toward helping us get the word out about this podcast. If you have any questions, any comments, feel free to leave those in the comment section below, and we look forward to hearing from you. After all, this is not a definitive answer on how to survive long distance relationships. I'm sure that there are lots of good tips and things like that from you guys, so we'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you in the next episode.